Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Sylvie D'Aoust, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, all things cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie D'Aoust. And we have with us a very special individual. This is actually marking the start of our race series that I started last year to do at the beginning of the year, because I know this is the time of the year where everybody's kind of like, all right, we're training and now we're going to start filling up our race calendar with all sorts of events. And for me last year, that's how I got on to adding 2 events to my summer. And I hope this helps you explore and find new events that you might not have heard about. So we have with us Mayor Damien Boley. Is it Boley?
Yes.
Excellent. He is from Smithville, Missouri. So he is the mayor of Smithville, Missouri, and he is going to be talking about the Humphrey's Gravel Adventure that happens on May 6th. So we are super excited to have him. He's also going to be dropping a promo for anyone to use this code to get 25% off registration. So mark this down before we get into the podcast. It is I Love Gravel, and the link to the event will be in the show notes, but I'm sure that Damien will share that with you. So welcome to the podcast episode, Damien.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time today.
I love it. I love that. So a little background, both of us know the beautiful and energetic Pamela Harper, who has put together a Facebook page called I Love Gravel Racing. So if you're into gravel and racing, or maybe just like gravel, you should follow that page. But I put a call out to all event organizers to join me on the podcast to talk about their events. So that's how I found Damien, and I just want to thank you again. But my first question is always, how did you get into cycling?
Sorry, my wife's fucking.
That's all right. I saw her pop in there.
Yeah. That's right. You can edit that out or whatever. So I got into cycling when I was a kid, like everyone else did. That's how we got to our friend's house. And when I turned 16, I have no idea what happened to my bike. I really don't. And I spent hours sanding and repainting the thing almost every summer. And my buddy that I rode with all those years, he was about a mile away. So I'd ride to his house or he'd ride to my house and we'd play games. And then our other friend lived out on a gravel road. Like he was 200 yards down a gravel road, and we'd never ride to his house because it was on gravel. We were just on BMX, bikes, even though the tires were plenty now that we think about it. But we'd never ride to his house. And then I'd borrow my mom's 10-speed and we'd go ride on some longer stuff once in a while when we got a little bit older. But once we turned 16, bikes disappeared and we quit carrying. And then a few years ago, he kept talking to us about bike packing and gravel. And
is this your buddy?
Yeah, same guy. We've been friends since we were 10, and
wow.
32 years.
Love it.
His wife's my cycling coach, and she was into triathlons, which we will never do. But we always camped together every year, and he kept talking to us about bike packing and gravel. And he's like, "You guys just need to get a bike." And finally, I went to a bike shop, didn't have a good experience because I had bought a cheap bike from a guy in town who fixes up bikes and sells them. but I was like, I want some different tires and some different components. I took it to a shop. They pretty much laughed at me for bringing in this cheap bike. So I went and rode it. I did some work myself, went and rode the bike, had fun on a trail, went to a different shop that I still have a really good relationship with, and bought a $2,000 gravel bike. And sorry
Yep.
to the other shop that missed out on the sale. But that's a story you hear way too many times about people trying to get into cycling as an adult. In 2017, I started Smithville Bike Co-op as an online group. That's the office I'm
Say that
sitting in
again.
right now. I started the Smithville Bike Co-op as an online group. So it's
Okay.
kind of, let's try to get together and do some rides. Let's talk about what tools each of us has to be able to like share stuff, home, kind of working out of my garage. In 2019 November, I finally, after fighting for 2 years to find a space in our downtown, I finally got a space, and then the pandemic started. So
Brilliant.
now the shop is a Trek partner store, still Smithville Bike Co-op.
Okay, so
We
I saw
are
that. That's yours.
yeah. So that's where I'm sitting right now. We also have Paradise. I have Paradise Outfitters just on the other side of the lake, which are still rent bikes. We have 30 miles of paved trails on that side of the lake and a lot of single track. And you couldn't get a tube if you had a flat in town. So now you have 2 spots to go grab a tube if you need one. Yeah, so that's, I really don't do anything halfway, as you can tell. So got back into cycling, loved bike packing. The Katy Trail goes across the state of Missouri. I wish I would have known about it when I was in like college, because that would have been a great way to just go have fun for free, pretty much. Just ride your bike on the Katy. So we bike packed the Katy a few times. We've done a lot of bigger bike packing, like Trans South Dakota, Cannonball. Done a few gravel races. I'm signed up for Mid-South again because I like wrecking everything in March. If you've never done Mid-South, Mid-South is very muddy and cold usually. So yeah, it wrecks your bike, wrecks your body, but it's fun. So anyway, yeah, it's really because my childhood friends, we decided we're getting older, we need a way to stay in shape, and bikes are fun. So
I love
2 of them.
I think, Damien, I think more of us at this age who love cycling are looking for that kind of outlet. Because I know for myself that, just thinking about the event that we're going to put on and like the vision that I have for it, I'm like, and then I look at some of these others, like I don't know you yet, but I'm sure it's the same. Like I look at Matt Acker, I'm sure you've heard of him, and some of the other organizers, and the lifestyle that comes with like being an event organizer. And of course you can't just do that because you need multiple things, but it is a great way to keep active and giving back, and also a little bit extra. So yeah, I think is that kind of one of your main things, like the bike shop, being mayor, and having the events?
I also have a day job. I'm a director of
Oh, you have
technology
it.
for big financial. Yeah, so my wife gives me hell. She says I have 6 jobs, and she upgraded to 7 the other day because a couple months ago she said I'm her assistant now. Because
Oh, is she managing you
both,
or managing everything?
I manage her. She teaches for colleges. I teach at a couple of colleges.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
director of technology, which normally most people in my career field, that's all they do, is they work a lot of hours. They make sure servers and systems work,
Yeah.
and you're on call 24/7. And it really, I've seen so many people die young or have a lot of health issues in our field. So I'm like, I have to make health and fitness and getting up and moving a priority, because of that. I've been doing this I'm 42. I've been doing this since I was 19, and sitting in a desk chair 100 hours a week, it's bad for you. So yeah, that's not the only thing I do. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love consulting on boards. I love to travel. It's an outlet. And when you mentioned the event directing, I love event directing. I love event planning, but I always tell people that I'd rather ride a 100-miler event every day than event direct sometimes, because it is so stressful, because you're worried about every single person on the bike while they're out
Yeah.
there. Not just when you're riding, you're worried about yourself, and you know
Yeah.
what to do to take care of yourself. The 500 people that could show up to an event, it's one unfortunate accident away from having a really bad day.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
even people getting flats, it stresses me out. But God forbid something major happen. But
Uh-huh.
anyway,
Yes. Yeah, I can attest to that for sure. Because, I guess the more people you bring out, the more stress is added to the top to make sure that everybody makes it back. Makes it
yeah,
back across the finish line.
I always that's what, the guys that help me design the course. I always tell them they want more gravel, more off road. I'm like, you need a break every once in a while from just getting beat up by gravel.
Uh-huh.
But we also need to be able to get out there. But I don't want to break people's bikes, right? If you do Mid South, you're guaranteed you're probably going to break your bike on a rainy year, and have to replace the derailleur or chain or something. I want people to finish, and I want people to not have
Have
flats and not
fun.
have problems, and plenty of water, right? Having
Mhm.
limited water stops on a race to me is just ridiculous. When people, oh, we're going to limit water stop. No, have 100. Who cares? Like, encourage the people along your course to put out coolers for people. Like, it's
Yeah.
if you get dehydrated, it's bad.
Yes. And you know what? I know like you said, when you're designing, you want it to be like over the top, right? And off the beaten path. But you're right, like these places can take people where they're probably not comfortable and not prepared for it. And if you don't know how to manage a flat, then it could be bad news. Like I did a race called Reggie Ramble, and I got a flat going up like a very steep hill. Like thankfully it was close to the top. And luckily I'm good with changing flats, but the girl behind me got a flat the same time, same place. So there's the two of us. And she didn't have half the tools, and if she had been by herself, it would have been a really not a good, ending. And thankfully I was there with actually I have
Yeah,
patches and everything. We had to patch it and patch mine and then having a proper pump and all these things. It really is, you really have to plan. Like you can't just go out there like it's a road race. But
yeah, and luckily I'm surrounded by planners, and uh, we actually have spreadsheets. It's funny is you go to a shop and you'll buy a new gravel bike and drop a lot of money, or bike packing bike, and then you'll want a bag for it and they won't have anything. And it's all special order. We try to keep three of everything in stock that you would need. So if it's you and a friend, and then we have a spare. Um, we have lists of like, oh, if you're going to go out and do a 50 miler, this is all the
oh,
stuff you're going to need. If you're going to do 100, this is all the stuff you're going to need. This is how many water bottles you're going to need. This is how many, endurance packs you're going to need. If you're going to do a 200 miler, this is what kind of how you want your setup. And we've learned, because we went out and done it and been knuckleheads and tried to change out a bladder instead of the whole pack. Like changing a bladder during Unbound is not easy. Changing a pack is super easy. So
oh geez, yeah, okay. So like, filling it up, you mean? And
yeah,
then
yeah, filling it up or just swapping out the bladder itself. Like just have an extra, like have two packs and swap them out and
oh
go.
my
Like,
God, yeah, you're so right.
yeah, it's like that experience we can talk about and say, oh yeah, if you're out bike packing, yes, I know this weighs a little bit more, but you're going to thank me that you have a coffee mug with you on a 3-day event, and you can fill up with hot coffee. Like, yeah, it might
This
weigh
is
a little more,
true.
but you're going to be out there like that. So who cares?
Yeah,
So,
like I don't think you should be thinking about weight. So now, Damien, tell me about becoming mayor and what's that meant to you, and what have you done with your
yeah, the if you look at the news right now and look at the political world, you probably say, why would anybody ever want to do anything like that? Most of your mayors are community servants. We don't get paid a lot. We get paid. My salary is $300 a month. It's a stipend to help cover gas or travel or whatnot. And in bigger cities than us, it's not much more. There's
Whoa.
very few mayors that get to do it as a job, right? You watch, my daughter's been watching Stranger Things, and I'm watching it with her, and like the mayor's got this giant, like, no way, that's not how it really is. Um, my daughter was in kindergarten, and I was 37, which is very rare for a not big city mayor to run for office. I heard a lot of the moms complaining about a lot of things going on in town, a lot of people complaining, and I said, yeah, I should do something about it. And they're like, no, we don't want to. I was like, well, so I started watching a lot of board meetings. I never went to a board meeting. I never went to watch a city hall board meeting in person. I never really set foot in there until I was sworn in. Um, but I started
Were you
studying
into
it just like I do.
politics?
Not really. No,
No.
I was just like, this is screwed up, and they need some leadership. And I don't want to run for alderman or city council. It's board of aldermen here. And I was like, I'm going to run for mayor. And we had a mayor who'd been in office for 8 years as mayor, 3 years before that as an alderman. He was in his 60s, like the typical town of our
Uh-huh.
size mayor. People were like, you're not going to win. I was like, yeah, but at least maybe I can get some information out there of what the town really wants to look like. Because at the time, our demographic had shifted from a town with a bunch of people and they're closer to retirement to a town where the average age was my age at the time, which was 37. Better schools, more kids. We
Mm-hmm.
had this beautiful Corps of Engineers lake that was built in the 70s that wasn't being utilized. We had 0 paved trails in town, and people want to ride bikes. And
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of paved trails in the county part of it and single track. I said, and I went to go pay the water bill. And as you saw at the beginning, my wife walked in to hand me a drink. Um, I went to go pay the water bill. She would probably never ask me to do something like that again. I came home and I said I paid the water bill. And by the way, I also signed up to run for mayor. And she goes, okay, but at least you paid the water bill.
That didn't
And
sink
we
in
didn't
too much too
and we
quickly.
and we didn't talk about it much until they announced it after filing was done. Me and her talked about it, but we didn't talk about it to other people. We didn't really do a lot of marketing or campaigning. I was involved with coaching soccer with my daughter and our church and different things like that. PTO. I was the school supply chair for our PTO, so every single person got a order form right before the election with my name on it,
Oh.
saying if you need school supplies, order from Damien. And I bought a couple signs. And when it came time to do like the community forum, where it was kind of like a debate, um, people saw what I had to offer versus the do nothingness of the previous administration. And we are in the north side of Kansas City, it's the fastest growing area in the metro, and we were
Mm.
having no growth. No, nothing was really happening. They were
Oh.
just kind of stagnant. And I won 60-40, and it was kind of cool. I wanted 500 votes because nobody had ever had 500 votes and won a mayoral election. I got
Wow.
490. I got 497 and won, and was disappointed about that. The ballot, but at the same time on the ballot, there was a bond issue and a sales tax that I campaigned harder for because that was going to be a tipping point for our community of saying, let's see if the voters actually want to spend a little more money and redo our downtown and put in some bike lanes and a trail. And that's what was on the ballot: 2 trails and downtown ADA sidewalks, because our
Oh.
downtown is not ADA accessible. So people in wheelchairs and people pushing strollers, they couldn't get around.
Oh.
So we said that was more, this community said that's important. Let's spend money on that. And I could deliver that vision. And now I'm in my 5th year. So I've been through 2 other elections since then.
So
Twenty
how long is your term? Is it like 2 years
it's
or
they're 2-year terms, but on the November ballot, we put on 4-year terms to see if the voters would say, let's do it. And we didn't market it. We just put it on the ballot, and it came out. I think I got about 64% of the vote. People wanted 4-year terms. So if I do run again in 24, it'd be for a 4-year term. 2020 election got moved due to the pandemic, but nobody ran against me. 2022 election was brutal, but I finally got my 500 votes. We had 1,600 voters turn out. It was a 3-way race, and it was very politically charged, as you see on the news, on
mm-hmm.
every school board, everything. People are trying to run for office because they hate masks, they hate vaccines, they hate whatever. We had people that hate cycling, so they, we don't want any more bike lanes. We don't want any more bikes in our community. We want people to stop coming here. So let's run for office to stop it. They lost. I finally got my 500 votes. I got 800 and some. But it is a community service role, most mayors. And what I tell people is, you have 2 senators, you have 1 governor. Missouri has 900 mayors. Mayors can get a lot done. Think about every little town has a mayor.
Oh, wow. Oh, I guess so.
You can get a lot of things done. Like in the Kansas City Metro alone, we have over 40 communities. And some of those people are elected and they do nothing, and they just serve because they owned the local insurance agent and they ran and they were popular enough to be in charge, and they want to make sure that their town stays the way they wanted to stay. You can get a lot done. And if you build that coalition with other mayors and go to the state and fight for things, you can move the needle a lot more than you can trying to get your senator to do something or your governor to do something. We now have in Kansas City more trails, and I actually have it on my desk, our regional trail map that Mid-America Regional Council puts out. And making those connections with other mayors in the Northland, being at the time the youngest elected mayor, they've now put me on Mid-America Regional Council, which is our metropolitan planning organization, which handles all our federal dollars for the 9-county area across Missouri and Kansas. And I'm on the executive board, so I'll be the chair in a few years. We have a $110 million budget. And when you're sitting at the table and the fight is over landscaping at a bus stop in the inner city versus a trail that connects a school to a housing authority so that kids that don't have cars can walk, somebody's got to be in there fighting for that, or else the bus stop's going to get landscaped.
Right.
And that's what got me involved. I was looking at my daughter in kindergarten saying, I always tell people it was selfish. I want my grandkids to want to live here and visit here, and not just be as somebody that goes to school here and then moves. I've told our school district many times, we teach our kids how to leave. And that's not what builds a community. We tell them, get done with school, go to college, get a job. And by the way, you can't afford to buy a house here until your kids are in high school, so go away. We've done a really bad job with multifamily, with affordable housing, with entry-level housing, with starter homes. It's all McMansions and subdivisions. And
McMansions.
We're trying to.
Oh my gosh, I got to use that.
Yeah. But if you think about it from a demographic standpoint, right? The people, like you said, the people that do what we do, the people that are getting a couple years in their career that want to get a little healthier, they'll probably go buy a bike or get a gym membership or do something. And we weren't capitalizing on that. We had 0 coffee shops and 11,000 people. That were average age 37. You had no place to get a cup of coffee other than like McDonald's or Sonic.
Oh, wow.
Now we have 3. One's right down the street from the bike shop, and people will come and grab a cup of coffee before the race. And it's a small town coffee shop that is run by a 25-year-old girl that's graduated from here and came back and is now on our board of aldermen.
Oh, that's inspirational.
I talked her into running.
Well, I mean, who do you want by your side, right? Like a local entrepreneur who is young and has a vision. But I agree with you with the affordable housing. It's the same here in Chelsea. It's just big houses, and the thing is, like you said, like the kids who grew up and finished college can't afford to live here, so they have to go to the city. And the same with like seniors, and it's a big problem. Yeah, these McMansions, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to sell it and go to a ranch style house, even so the thing is, we have ranch style houses that are just as expensive that those seniors want to downsize into, but they're not available because they're all, nobody's building them anymore. So yeah, you have to think about the community as a whole. And I always tell people, if teachers can't afford to live there, who's telling your kid what to do when they're downtown on the weekends? Because that's what put the fear of God in me on the weekends. If I saw one of my teachers, I straightened up real quick. But if they can't afford to live, if they can't live in your community, then it's harder for them.
Yeah, that's there's something wrong there. So tell me about the Humphreys gravel adventure and how that came to be. Because it's been,
Yeah.
like you
So
mentioned, it's been fifth year running. And we've got that promo for anyone, 25% off to go and register with the code I love gravel. But how did that get started, Damien?
so I volunteered at a race called Cool Hand Luke, which is over in Leavenworth, Kansas. Cool Hand Luke's a movie for those younger folks listening, um, about a guy who breaks out of prison, and Leavenworth has a huge prison. They named it Cool Hand Luke. So I volunteered at that one. I was like, this is a lot of fun, and I wrote it before too. And then I went and did Opal Wapu, which is in Excelsior Springs. They unfortunately are not doing their event anymore. And at the time, our downtown, we had started that construction project that I said it passed for our downtown. So I got elected in April, and we started construction. And Opal Wapu was in June. Me being very unaware of how the GPS reads on certain programs versus others, we looked at the race, and we'd done a 50 a couple times. And I was looking at Opal Wapu, and I was like, well, the elevation between the 50 and the 100 is only like 1,500 feet difference. So they must be going down by the river
1,500 feet
bottom.
there.
That's what it said. And I'm like, well, they must be going down by the river bottoms. It must be a lot of flats, or, we're just getting in and out of the town, because I knew there was hills around the town. And so we called the event director and said, hey, can we upgrade to the 100? Because my buddy really wanted to do 100. I'm like, I'll do it with you. It's fine.
Like
4 days
100
before
kilometers or 100
no,
miles?
100 miles,
Oh,
100 miler. So we went from the 50 mile to the 100 miler. And it
whoa.
was supposed to be it was supposed to be a high of 78 that day. And we're like, this is perfect weather to do 100. So we call him on Thursday for a Saturday race and said, hey, can we upgrade? He goes, everybody else is downgrading. I'm like, no, we want to do 100. And we get out there. It was, I think it was almost 12,000 feet of climbing. So it was way off. It got over 100 degrees that day. There was not very many water stops. At the 50-mile mark, we were at mid-pack. By the time we were at 75, everyone else behind us had dropped. And we're like, we're not stopping. We're finishing this thing. And luckily, like, we found some more on the side of the road type of stuff, and crossed the finish line. The event directors were like, hey, I'm adding a cutoff because y'all took too long. It wasn't even dark yet. Like, it wasn't like we were taking forever. He had ran out of beer, so we split me and my buddy finished our first 100, split a hot PBR in a can because that's all he had left. And so after that, I was like, if that event can happen, why not do one in Smithville? So literally, we lined up in September in front of a road closed sign, because our downtown at the time had gravel roads, and we put on a 50 and an 80. And I'd also done Wild Goose Chase, which is my buddy's race. They do a 50 and an 80 because in September you have less daylight. And then so I said, hey, we had like 50 people show up. I'm like, well, I'm going to call that a success. We had no finish line. We had no chip timing. We literally stood there and wrote down people's numbers and times.
Yeah.
And we charged like $30 a person. It was nothing. We got them a t-shirt. And the thing that seals the deal for people to come here is there's a downtown barbecue restaurant, and now there's another downtown bar and grill. At the end of the race, we provide a meal for you. So you can go get a pulled pork sandwich or hamburger or vegan option, and it's on us. You don't have to remember to bring cash. Go eat, drink beer, whatever you want to on the square. We've got live music. We throw a little party, and it's just a fun time. Like I said, it's $50, so it wasn't and it's a fundraiser for our parks. It helps put money into the trails, because now we do have trails in our town. We have one that goes from downtown to the lake, which is about 2 miles, and it's all paved concrete. It's the starting line, and you come across the dam for the finish. But we just threw it together, and I was like, let's see if this works. And pre-pandemic, the Lauf was doing a passport. We were the only city with 2 races, because Gudberg from Lauf actually came here and raced our race. He's the guy who designed the Lauf fork. This was the only race he'd ever done in the Midwest other than Dirty Kansas. And
Okay.
he flew in on Thursday and stayed till Sunday. And the guy, I think he closed down every bar he could. We had a lot of fun. He got to see our homecoming parade, which, coming from Iceland, he'd never seen a small town homecoming parade. He rode the 80 did not stop at any SAGs, and finished like 10th. And we had some pretty fast. He finished top 10. We had some pretty fast people, and then he just finished. He's like, "Hey, that's fun," and drank beer with us all night and hung out and flew back to
And
Iceland.
who is this again, Damien?
He was the engineer that designed the Louth Fork. So he was one of
Okay.
the chief engineer at Louth before they went direct market. But so he put us on the Louth was going to do a passport for gravel racing, similar to kind of what we're doing with this series, but they were doing like an international series where you'd get a passport and you get a stamp at each race. And then pandemic happened and their venture capital stuff happened where they went direct market. So that kind of went away. But we were the only place that had 2 stops because we had a May race and a September race. Because we wanted to do 2 events a year. We were like, this one is the competitive one. This is the more fun one. So now May, we've turned into May is just do what you want, ride it what you want. We've got a 200 miler, so people are out there quite a while. So if somebody wants to party pace the 25, we don't care. If somebody wants to ride the 25 twice, somebody's asked me, if I ride the 25 and feel like doing it again, can I do it? Yeah, go ahead. Because they want to get 50 in, but they're not want to commit to the 50. So
Right.
We've had people take 8 hours to finish the 25 because they stopped at every gas station, restaurant, get margaritas, go eat some tacos, just have fun. We had a couple folks that had tandems that had coolers on the back that took 10 hours. No, they took more than 10 hours. I think closer to 12 hours to finish the 50. But they like just stopped everywhere and had fun, and it was a good time. So we have follow cars. We just tell them, hey, if you see somebody stopped at the gas station, make sure they're okay. They'll catch up. So it's fun times. Yeah, we just want to have fun and ride bikes, and we have kids events during the thing and live music all day, and it's just a downtown party.
Oh, that's so much fun. Because maybe I might want to sit with you and just chat a little bit about your strategy, because I'm putting one on. Well, it'll be my second. So like your first one, I did it really last minute. I had 25 people, and we used some local routes that a lot of people are familiar with for gravel, and I gave out gift certificates for people to go into the village and eat. So we just made it really simple. And but this year we're adding we're working with the community center that's in the village, and for camping, and we have a DJ and food trucks, and so taking it up a notch, because really did it last minute. And I love what you guys are doing, and just talking to you and some of the other event organizers. Just would love to collaborate, not collaborate, but pick your brain, I guess.
Yeah,
as an event organizer.
Yeah, we go to what our philosophy has always been, and there's a couple people that help me with this stuff, and our philosophy on any event that we do, because we do 5Ks and do a few other triathlons and different things we help put on, is we want to do events that we wanted to do ourselves. Like, what would I always tell people that are helping and volunteering, I'm like, if you forget to do something, you're the only one who's going to know that it was supposed to happen anyway, so don't worry about it. Like, don't stress out that you forgot to hand out something at the finish line that you didn't really advertise and was just going to be fun anyway, and you forgot about it, and somebody left the box of whatever sitting somewhere, and you didn't have gummy bears at the finish line. Who cares? Like, just but don't. There's been a couple events that I know people have attended, and I've been to a couple too, that they're taking down the finish line when you finish. Like, they only want racers. Well, guess what? There's not that many of those. And if you want your event to be big, you've got, and that's the one thing Unbound and Mid-South has always done, right? Is they sit there. Bobby gives everybody a hug at Mid-South. I try to stay at the finish line the whole day and just say, cheer people on when they're coming in, and make sure that there's somebody there for the last person. And we've always done a last person award similar to what they do at Mid-South. Like, they want recognition too. Like, they paid the entry fee. Yeah, they're not fast. They're probably not sponsored. It's probably a bucket list item for them. Those people are more important to me than somebody who's doing this every single weekend and racing it, and probably not paying for it, right? So I like staying at the finish line. It's fun.
Now, Damien, I have something to ask you because, like, I've heard this uh, in and around that some of the gravel races, or maybe it's more mountain bike, are starting to cater to more pros because more pros are starting to make the shift from road to gravel, and they're making it harder for them specifically, and then everybody else has to, you know, um, do the same course. But what do you think about that? Because when you're I totally get you. Make it fun, and when it stops being fun, it stops happening. Um, and we want everybody to feel, um, like they had a good time. So, what do you think about that kind of thing? Like, being catered to the pros that are starting to, make the transition.
So it's that's an interesting question. I
Have
honestly
you seen that,
don't.
like, and
Yeah,
heard?
yeah, I definitely. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, and they did the prize pool this past year in gravel racing for the different events that different people did. And I like what this series is more, right? This is the let's give everybody some points and figure out what
Mm.
makes sense. And when we had actually talked about doing something similar here locally with some Bobby Thompson and some of the other race directors that are here in the Midwest, doing a not just the first, second, third. Let's give something to the mid packers that are showing up to every race, and let's give something to people that are at the bottom of the list that show up to every race, and reward them just as much as we want to reward somebody who gets on the podium. And it's just like everything else. Once business and capitalism gets into it, they're going to want it to be geared more towards pros to get more sponsorships and things like that. But
Mm.
grassroots gravel events, those aren't going to get the pro sponsorship. And if people like you and I, who are race directors, don't keep them going, like
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I've always tried to figure out. What's our succession planning for if I don't want to do this anymore? That's why I made it a Parks and Rec event for fundraiser. Our parks director could run this event just as well as I could run this event probably, because he knows it makes money for his parks department and it's a fun event to do. And it's not just a 5K. Those races are going to continue to happen. They're going to become more and more corporate. People might stop riding them, but everybody, people still do Ironman in Hawaii that are probably not trained for it fully, and get their name on the list, or the New York Marathon or the Boston Marathon. Those are bucket list items for some people. There's still pros
Mm-hmm.
at those events. They're still going to happen, but you can throw together a grassroots gravel event that's a $0 entry fee and people are going to show up and still have fun. So it
Yeah.
depends on what your goal of your event is. Like my goal is not to make money for me or for the shop. Historically, the Saturday of the race is our lowest sales day every single year, because every single person that works at this shop is outside putting air in somebody's tire or washing somebody's bike or making sure they have a good time. We're not worried about selling hats.
Mm-hmm.
So it is for the community. It's not for a business. You go to some of those other events, you sign up for those events that have these big lottery systems now, and
Yeah.
if you buy their jersey, you get a little more moved up the line, right? If you commit to their training rides, you get a little move. Like it has their place,
I
and
see that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
people can have their choice to do those events, and that's fine. I will not pay for one of those events. If somebody wants to give me an entry to one of those events, I'll gladly go ride it, and I will have a fun time. But I'd rather spend $35 on or $80 on a race that supports a local, like you're talking about, community center or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
that gets people to that town. And we have campgrounds too. That was one of our big things, is putting the campgrounds on the registration, where you can actually register for a camping site when you're
Yeah.
registering for the bike race. Like, oh, you're a cyclist, you might camp. Like you might have an
Mm-hmm.
RV, or you might just tent camp. Here's an
I've
add-on that's real
camped
easy for you. Yeah.
for at an event twice, two different events. I
Yeah.
love being
And that's the
on
one cool.
on site. Like, I think it's the best.
Yeah. And that is the one cool thing, even though Mid South has grown, it's still Bobby's race. You can camp on the courthouse lawn the night before and the night after, and they allow for that. So you don't have to buy a $1,200 hotel room to
I
go do the
know.
race.
Like, and you can bring your family. And that's what I
Yeah.
did one event. Like, I'm like, okay, this time you guys are gonna come with me, and you can bring your bikes and you can bike around while mommy's biking, and because it was a circuit. So I would roll
Yeah.
in every hour and a bit, and and then I could see everybody. So it was really cool.
Yeah. This
And
might
that.
we do a little Bikeville event, and my daughter, who's outgrown this bike 3 bikes ago, she still has her race number on that bike because that was her first bike race. And she got hurt. Another girl had training wheels and they tangled up, and she had to get a Band-Aid in the ambulance and get treated like she was really hurt. Because my friend is the one who her daughter. My friend's daughter was the one who tangled up with her, and she was in charge of the ambulance. And she's like, "Oh, let's get her a Band-Aid and let's take good care of her," even though it was just a scratch on the knee. But that's still her race bike, and she still remembers that. And my wife hates cycling. It's not comfortable for her. She's never gotten to the point where she likes it, but she'll go out on course and take fantastic pictures and chase people down. And
that's amazing.
Just likes taking pictures. So
you definitely need someone who likes to take pictures, and lots of them.
Yeah, we usually have 4 or 5 photographers on course, and they're all unpaid volunteers who just like taking pictures. Yeah. So they just publish them all on Facebook and let you grab pictures. Like, that's the fun thing, is finding your pictures and not paying for them.
Yeah, spotting you. Oh my god, on that hill.
Yeah.
Those are the best ones.
We like to put them in fun spots. Trail cameras are fun too. If you have a good spot that's like a B road, put out some trail cameras that people don't know there's a photographer. Yeah,
that's a great idea. Like a trail, like a video. Like a video camera.
just like the deer cameras, you know.
Yeah.
Cellular hookup, and you can get video or pictures of people being miserable.
That's a great idea. I love that, Damien.
I don't know if you throw a B road but we always try to throw at least one dirt road that could be sloppy but won't break your bike. Like, if it's nice, if you have to walk it, at least it's a pretty view.
Yeah, well, I could think of some hills that are always good, like, to get people coming up them. Those are the best. Those hill climbing pictures are priceless.
Yeah, at the beginning of our course, which it's not going to be at the beginning this year, but in the last 2 years, it's been the beginning. There's a wall. It's called Ridgely Wall, and it's literally a wall. And anytime I'm training a new cyclist and they think they're ready for a hill, I take them there and I'm like, okay, you stay here, wait 5 minutes. I'm going to go get set up to take a picture of you doing a video of you doing your first hill. And it's like a 21% grade. So
oh my God.
It's literally, and the funny thing, you feel like you can get momentum to get up it. So you're going down, you hit a bridge, but right before there's a hard dip from a creek and you lose all momentum, and then you have to climb this thing. And once you got past the wall part of it, you're like, oh, I'm done with this hill. It keeps going for like a mile. So you climb. So a lot of people jump off their bikes there, and some people make it, but it is really funny to watch somebody, who thinks they know how to climb, and then you teach them really quick that loose gravel plus high grade it's harder than you think, and they don't get in the right gear because it's a false.
Yes, it's all about the gear. That's Oh well, this has been. Yeah, go ahead.
I say that's where we always put a photographer on race day, is that hill.
Yeah, that would be the hill. So I love it. So everybody, check out Humphrey's Gravel Adventure. And what's the website for that?
It's on Bike Reg. So Bike Reg.
Oh, Bike Reg. Okay.
Yeah.
So Humphrey's Gravel Adventure. Oh yeah. Where did the name come from?
The name came from Humphrey Smith, who's the founder of our town. So in the early 1800s, 1822. So we had a bicentennial race. That's why we started doing our 200. 1822, Humphrey Smith set up a mill here. Where the bike shop sits today was the edge of the United States. Before the Platte Purchase and Louisiana Purchase got annexed in, this was the end of the country. So he set up on the very end of the country because he was an abolitionist. He wanted to get away from slavery, and he wanted to have a mill. And he founded the town here. Part of his last will and testament was his gravesite couldn't be disclosed until the slaves were freed, which didn't happen until 40 years later, 50 years later. He actually was in town for 22 years before he got tired. Once you set up a mill, then you start getting taverns and bars and different things. And he did not like the rowdiness of the people waiting to get their stuff milled. So he went up to Iowa, and then his son stayed here, his grandkids stayed here, but he came back eventually and is buried here. But yeah, it's named after him because we wanted to name something after the founder of our town. And back then they probably didn't have many roads coming this way. And from Smithville, you can ride to Canada and not hit a major city and stay on back roads. pretty
No
much. It's
way. Because I was
we're
just
on the north
thinking,
side of Kansas City.
because Tennessee, right? It's Tennessee? No,
Missouri.
Kansas, Missouri.
Yeah.
So if I was, because I'm Canadian, everybody, if I were thinking, so I know where Tennessee is. Where is it in proximity to that? Is it close to that?
We
Is it
border Tennessee on the southeast corner of
south?
Missouri. So we're dead center in this middle of the United States. So if you go straight down from Minnesota, you hit Missouri. So
Okay.
the so the original cross country highway was called the Jefferson Highway. It went through Smithville back in the early 1900s, before the Great Depression. It went from New Orleans to Winnipeg.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay, so
So
it's underneath Winnipeg.
yeah, so you could pretty much just take a gravel road north out of town and go all the way to Canada and
That
avoid all the
is
cities, because all the cities are more to the east or the west, right? So
right.
if you needed to, you could go over to like Omaha or someplace, or to Lincoln, where Gravel Worlds is. But yeah, you could tie Sarah Cooper. She runs a lot of the races in Iowa.
Uh-huh.
She's our 200-mile record holder. She came back and did it the second year just to do better. She's an ultra cyclist. She does a lot of events. She does like a Trans Iowa. It's Iowa Wind and Rock now, but originally it used to be Trans Iowa. They stopped doing Trans Iowa. She started doing Iowa Wind and Rock, which is a all Q sheet, 100% Q sheet, no GPS file. You show up at a grocery store at 4 o'clock in the morning to get your Q sheets.
Oh my God, it's like
340
an
mile.
adventure race.
It's 340 miles, and if you don't hit your cutoff, you don't get your. You have 34 hours to finish. So that's the type of event she puts on, because she's a different kind of crazy.
That is
But,
crazy because I
but
used
love
to
her,
adventure
and
race.
yeah, and you can hit her part of her routes if you go north of here, and then all of Minnesota. There's all kinds of great gravel routes around here, and most of it's limestone, so it's not going to destroy your bike.
Right. Wow. Oh my gosh, everybody. I hope for those of you who are listening that you've taken lots of notes, like I actually have, lots of things to do, and to make sure that you go to Bike Rag, look up Humphrey's Gravel Adventure. For anyone, there's a promo code to get 25% off, and the code is I love gravel, and you can go and do that right now. And geez, oh my God, thank you, Damien. Sorry, Mayor Damien. I have to say, throw that in there. But for being a guest on the podcast, I have learned a lot of things.
I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, because like I said, when I was talking to Pam, I'm like, I love learning about what's going on in the States. Canada is pretty, I don't know, it's either like super big but not, I find that there's just, there's a lot more going down in there, but not, and that's another reason why putting on an event up here is important to me. Also because I love organizing and I love riding and I love racing. And I love that my community is really on board with tourism and bringing people in there and just showcasing the gravel that is around me. So I want to thank you so much for making the time. And yeah, I have to go and look up where Smithville, Missouri is, because that's I've been like I've driven across the United States and been to a couple places, but I don't believe I passed through Missouri. I've been to
I
Oklahoma.
I always tell people that we are way closer to the airport than Emporia. We still have a 200-mile course, and it's a lot cheaper. So if you want to stay at a really nice hotel that's cheaper than what it costs to go to that other race down south, and
That other
we
race
scheduled it.
down.
We scheduled it a couple weeks before that race because it's a good training time. If you're tapering down for 200 miles, you can come do our 100 3 weeks before, and it's about your training schedule. So,
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking
and we
about.
actually designed our sags to mirror whatever they're doing that year. So if they're putting a sag at 60, we were putting our sag at 60. So it's a good training ride and we're in a good spot between Mid South and Unbound.
Oh, there it was.
There it is.
There it is. Because actually, I put my name in for it this year.
200.
Well, Damien, I made a little bit of mistake and I put my name in. I think that's the longest one, right? The
350
XL?
is the longest.
Yeah.
350 is the long one.
So I made the mistake and put my name in for that. And I got it.
Well,
And now I got
awesome.
to phone and say, hey, I just kind of want to do the 100 kilometers or the 60.
The 100 mile. Yeah. You can do the 350. You can do it.
Oh,
It's all mental. I took a sabbatical last year after Cannonball. So Cannonball 550 is a lot of the same route as the Unbound course. It's still the Flint Hills, starts and ends right in front of the Granada in Emporia. But it's a free event. It's a 550-mile bikepacking event. And
whoa.
I rode part of it in 2021. And then I had just done parts of North South Colorado. That's a couple weeks before that. And I had a pretty tight schedule that year. And my wife was not happy with me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take a year off of events. And I was literally going to take all of 2022 off and not ride any organized events. And we were driving, and I said something about Brahms, which is down here, the ice cream place. It's in Emporia. The closest one's Emporia because it's got to be within 200 miles of their dairy. And she goes, well, you should do Cannonball this year. You haven't done anything this year. And this was like 3 weeks before the event. And I said, I had put my Fargo up. I have a titanium Fargo bikepacking bike. I had put it up and I literally hadn't touched it all year. I rode a total of under 30 miles in 2022.
What?
Because
Really?
I literally said I wasn't going to touch them. I said I'm not touching the bike. I did a lot of yoga. I did other stuff, strength conditioning type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm not going to ride. And she goes, we should go do Cannonball. You haven't done anything this year. You can go see your friends and go do Cannonball. I did 120 miles the first day on a fully loaded bikepacking rig through some of the hardest terrain, and it rained most of the day. And I went to the Mexican place the night before with everybody. I stopped in Alma, which is when I went to the SAGs for last year when DK. I don't think they've been back through there since then. They had a really nice little Mexican restaurant that I stopped and had some tacos and margaritas, and because I knew I was going to have 40 miles to ride in the dark to get to the next town. Mm-hmm. And I ended up doing 200 and some miles in 2 days. And, it's all mental. If you go into the attitude of I can do 350 miles and it's just riding my bike and pedaling and eating junk food from convenience stores, you'll be fine. If you go in and try to race the 100 or you're going to be in this big rollout. And if you like taking pictures and having fun, go do the 350. If you don't finish it, at least you maybe get.
Is there a cutoff, or can you
there's a cutoff on the 350. It's you have 30 some hours to do it, but you roll out. You got to roll out in a smaller group with more people cheering for you, and then you still come in the same finish line. So just learn how to take couple naps in a ditch and eat some convenience store food and you'll be fine.
Well, I used to do adventure races, so 36 hours, 48 hours, 8 days, but that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's still muscle memory. You'll be fine.
And I think about that because we used to have to bike sometimes for 40, 36 hours for those long ones, right? Like long mountain biking, long.
What more fun of a story would it be to say oh, I finally registered for Unbound and I did the 350 and oh, how many times do you do that 200? You're oh, I've never done it. I've never been there. I just decided why not go big or go home.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The thing is that I got so excited because I put my name that's what I was going to do. And I'm not even realizing with the distance that it was for. And I'm like, yeah, I put, my girlfriend's like, that's 350 miles. I was like, really? And I'm like,
what do you ride?
Oh my God. Well, it's a newer brand. It's called a Montu Copis. So it's a new brand bike, and I'm upgrading my components because I raced on it this summer and I raced hard. Like I race hard. Um, I'm like, yeah. And so I had to upgrade some components on it. It is a packing bike though.
Yeah,
Um,
if you can get like if you can get like a 48, 45C on there, and just you'd be perfectly fine. Make sure you have a bag to throw your food in. But Casey's Pizza will get you through a lot of things. And
so okay, well, maybe we should you know what, maybe if you're open, I'd have you come back and we'll talk about racing packing strategies. Would
okay,
you be would you be
love
open
it.
for that?
Absolutely. That's what.
Because
So
I
yeah,
would
and
need that.
yeah, we do. I love. So if you want to listen to a fun, just two guys being idiots podcast, listen to the Orange Mud podcast that I was on with Josh. Josh Sprague, who owns Orange Mud, uh, he and I do stupid things like go and sign up to do 750 miles across South Dakota. And he, I was at the finish line when he finished Trans South Dakota, and his battery had died 11 miles out on a 750-mile race on his Axis. So he's literally going in on granny gear for the last 11 miles.
Oh fuck
And
up.
you just imagine like you're high cadence and you can't go anywhere. Like it's the flat part, and you're finally through all this hell. And we do dumb things, and he's got some stories. But he owns, he created he was an adventure racer. He created the Orange Mud packs because he was
Oh,
usually
he
behind
used to
some.
be an adventure racer?
Yeah, so he would be behind people and see their packs flopping around. He's like, I can make something better than that. And so yeah, we talk when we did our podcast together. We just talk about dumb, stupid things that for endurance. But he comes up and does cannonball. I called him last year. I was like, Josh, when are you gonna get to the hotel? He's like, oh, I'll be there tomorrow. I'm like, dude, the race starts tomorrow morning. He thought it was a Saturday start, not a Friday start. And in typical ultra racer, crazy non-plan, he's a planner, but not that much of a planner. Um, he decided at like 3 a.m. that morning. He lives in Round Rock, Texas. He got in his car and decided, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and drive to like the 10 hours to get to the starting line. I know I'll be late. And then he caught most of us.
Oh,
The
is
guy,
that a kick
the
in the
guy
face?
he calls me and he's like, I might have to buy shoes when I get to Emporia because I think I know I have one of my cycling shoes, but I don't know if I have the other one. Because he grabbed everything in the middle
You
of the
know
night and
what?
just threw it in
I
his
know
truck.
people like that.
Yeah. So yeah, he and I have done some events, but then you got guys that I ride with like Ty Bragg and Peggy Bradley. Peggy is on. If you look at the Orange Mud calendar this year, Peggy's on there. Ty's on there. If you look at the Cannonball starting list, a lot of the starters and a lot of the probably the majority of the finishers for the last 3 years have came out of they're part of the co-op. Peggy, I think, is the third female ever to finish Cannonball. She's a planner. She prints out Excel sheets for me of like, this is every gas station, truck stop, park, bench on the whole 550-mile route that you could possibly, if you need a place to take a nap, like here's this you need this kind of Mountain Dew. This is like, she's a planner. Ty, he's on the calendar this year too. He's a planner. I'm not. I mean, I keep my bike packed with the stuff I know I'm going to need on it. Like if it's, I'm like, I can minimalist. Yes. Under 50 pounds on my bike. I know that if I have a flat, I know my stuff's on there because I never take it off.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if I need to sleep, and I want a comfortable bed, I have a credit card. Like if I want to sleep on a ditch, I can
sleep anywhere. I've been one of those,
yeah.
And I've fallen asleep on my bike too before.
Yeah, well, some of the guys I ride with, they started doing this thing. They do 8-minute naps. So they set their phone alarm for 8 minutes and put it on their chest, and then sit down. And on 550, I think they did 3 8-minute naps.
I'm good with a 15-minute.
Yeah, yeah, you could easily do the 350. You'd be fine.
Okay, you know what? I think you're making me feel better about this because I was just about to call them and say, hey, I think, can you like move me over? But all right. So everybody who's listening, I know we're just rambling now. So, so would you
can
love
edit that
to
out,
have Damien back and maybe some of his buddies? We could get a whole gang together and do a podcast on how to prepare for an endurance ride so you can help me survive 500, because I know what I do for adventure racing, but it's multi-sport and it's not just cycling.
Yeah.
But anyways, so thank you so much, Damien. Thank you, everybody.
No problem.
Make sure that you go check out his event again, Humphrey's Gravel Adventure, and use the code I Love Gravel to get 25% off registration. Go check it out. And thank you very much, and have an amazing day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Secrets from the Saddle podcast, learning more about sighting people, places, and things that make cycling such an exciting sport. I am so glad you stopped by today. Please leave me a review if you feel so moved to do so. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you could take 1 second to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. Also, if you could please leave me a review if you feel so moved by going to iTunes and leaving me an honest thought and an honest comment, telling me what you think, and most importantly, tell me what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me to bring more great, inspiring cycling stories to you. Until then, have an amazing day. Make sure you ride your bike. And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel if you'd like to see the full version of this podcast live.